Low-quality fans of a high-quality Bruins team, welcome back. Did we blow it? This is an easy video. This is a quick video, a little quickie, if you will. Just get in, get out, get done, you know? That's out of order, but you get it. Did we blow it? Did the Bruins blow it? The two big trade acquisitions at the center position. The available guys at the deadline that we know of, that we know are available. We are going to have a big, and I mean massive video coming out very soon about the trade deadline, prepping for March 8th. But things started early, 5 weeks early. Elias Lindholm and Sean Monahan, gone. Not an option. A lot of you have talked to me about both of those guys, and some of you are hot on them, some of you aren't. This lighting is terrible. Why do I look so pale? It doesn't matter. Did the Bruins blow it? Well, that depends on what you think they were really going for. Because there were things that I was sure the Bruins weren't going to do this year. And I'm still pretty damn sure they're not going to do. Rentals. And I mean true rentals. If they can't get an extension, they don't want it. They don't want it. Because we're giving up assets for players who may walk. Now, last year, that was the big swing. They went for it. They put assets into rentals. They attempted that route. I don't think it worked. I don't think last year ended the way they wanted it to. That's just my humble assumption there. This year, the cupboards are pretty bare. They're pretty bleak, if we're going to be honest. There's not a ton of assets to throw around. There's a couple prospects we really like. We have two AHL guys who are close to a point per game in Lysell and Merkulov. We'd like to keep them around. We've got Lorai, who we think is going to be a top 4 guy for years to come. And we have Brandon Bussy, who we think is going to be a future backup in the NHL. I don't think there's a lot of hype about him being a starting goaltender, personally, but there are assets. There's not a lot of them. Not a lot of draft capital. Not a lot to work with. So the rentals don't make a ton of sense. But there is one other rule that I think is really important. And this is a rule that most teams have to follow. But teams like Vancouver, who has their window opening right now with many young pieces that will be on the team for a while. Teams like Winnipeg, who don't know how many cracks at the can they're really going to get here and have the assets to go out and get more. Those teams can ignore this rule a little bit. You cannot give up assets and pay a guy for what you want him to be. You can't do that. If you are the Bruins, you cannot waste $1 anymore on overvaluing a player. We have contracts like that right now that were intended to support a team that was having chances at the Cup. We're number 1 in the league standings, or tied for it right now, so I get how this seems a little odd. But again, we've been through it this season. There's a real feeling of, yeah, we're working with what we got. And this is a year to go for it, in a sense. But you can't mortgage the whole future for it, because we don't have much to mortgage as it is. But if you're a team who has the window just opening, or a team that has their core in place for at least a few more years and still has assets available, you can ignore the overvaluing guys. You can spend a little extra to make sure you support the team you currently have, because those assets just simply won't be as important right now. Elias Lindholm is a good 2C on a championship team. I truly believe that. He wants to be paid in the 9 millions as an extension, which is a lot of money for a good 2C. And they gave up a ton of value for him. Now, I know Vancouver fans, they have their own spin on this, and I think they're right to a degree as well, but they paid a premium for this guy. The Bruins cannot afford to pay Elias Lindholm like a 1C with their current situation. They can't afford to give up assets for a 1C that isn't a 1C. They just can't afford it. The Bruins didn't blow it because two things happened that for different reasons don't make sense. One, Vancouver paid a price that we couldn't. Now, reports will say that Boston was in on this and they needed an extension done. The extension would have costed more assets. That's how that works. They gave up, Vancouver, a first, which is the price of doing business when you're supporting your team. If you are getting a player that has an impact on your squad, a late first-round pick is the starting point. We have realized that fully, and we're going to circle back to that in a second. They get a first. They get a conditional third or fourth. I don't remember exactly what the conditions were there, but it's technically a fourth right now, conditional. It could become a third. They get Jeremo, who is basically an AHLer, and they get Luszczyszyn, which is a great name. Hunter, we'll call him, who is lighting up the OHL as a defenseman right now. That's a real prospect. That's a real prospect. Now, do they know that he's going to be a great NHLer? No. That's not a sure thing prospect. It's a real prospect. And another big piece of this is Kuzmenko, who has another year on a $5.5 million annual cap hit contract, who scored 39 goals last year in his first year in the league. Now, he was 26 years old. He's an older player to enter the league at that time. He's 27 now, and he wasn't being used by Vancouver anymore. He doesn't fit their system. So Vancouver fans are looking at that as a cap dump, which I get, but even with the astronomical shooting percentage he had the year that he scored almost 40 goals, which was 27%, you still don't refer to players who scored almost 40 goals as cap dumps. They just aren't. If he's not fitting your system, you were going to move him. Doesn't matter. He had value. That was real value you gave up. You could have traded him in a different way for assets, right? That is value that was traded because he's a year removed. He's having a bad year this year, but he's a year removed from almost a 40-goal campaign. Let's not act like that was a throw-in or you had to pay extra to move him. There is no way that that's how that works. It just doesn't. Because teams will look at the shooting percentage and go, yeah, it's too high. There's no way that's sustainable. But if I can get a yearly 25 to 30 goal scorer, I'm going to be pretty pumped about that. We weren't matching that. We weren't. The Athletic floated this idea of a first Patra and Freddie. And most of us balked at it. Most of us went, absolutely not. For a rental, for a guy who's a good 2C and wants a massive extension at 28 years old? What? Who's having a down year? We're going to give up a 19-year-old playing in the NHL who plays the position we are in most dire need of for future renditions of this squad. We're giving up a role player in Freddie who has been hitting his prime and a real important part of this middle six. And then a first-round pick in 2025, ensuring that we don't have another first-rounder until 2026. And it looks like it would have cost more when comparing those two things. It looks like we would have had to add in a Liesel, or if they had interest in Merkulov, if they had interest in Harrison, which Harrison's not a big loss, but like you're talking about some of our better prospects. Those two deals are not comparable. The Vancouver package is simply better. So you take that. We weren't in the running. Vancouver made sure we weren't in the running for a player that we couldn't afford to overvalue. Done. Sean Monahan, the next in line for top center on the trade deadline. First round pick and a third round pick conditional. Sean Monahan was traded to the Habs with a first round pick just to dump him. Which, great work by the Habs here. Like, I hate to say that, but great work by them. Were we really going to give up a first for a guy who's a rental in a contract year, who's having his best numbers in the past couple of seasons, who at least through the past few seasons has been more of a distributor than a scorer, which is kind of the exact opposite that the Bruins need right now in their top six? They need a trigger guy, not another guy who overpasses. A guy who has been overvalued as some sort of defensive stud where his numbers don't reflect that at all. This was another case of, okay, we're giving up future assets for a minor upgrade in our top six, and we're not even sure if that's going to stick. We're just running into the same issue. The Bruins can't do rentals, and if they don't see a future with the guy, They're not going to do it. Now, I know some of you really wanted Sean Monahan. It's under the radar, kind of grab him. He was not under the radar anymore. And his improvements in the top 6, I think, would have been overvalued. I don't think he really would have made as big a difference as people are making it out to be. Do you wish you could have got him for a B-level prospect and some middling pick? Absolutely. That wasn't on the table. I don't think Winnipeg or Vancouver made bad trades here. I think they did what they needed to make sure that they could compete with an arms race in the West right now. Because when you look at Winnipeg, Vancouver, Colorado, Vegas, Dallas, I'm missing one, Edmonton, there you go, can't believe I forgot them. The West is the gauntlet this year. It's not the East. It is not the East. That's an arms race kicking off. Were the Bruins making phone calls? 100%. But to think that they might have actually screwed this up somehow, that this was a price that they should have paid for these rentals? No. I'm just not there with you. Doesn't solve the immediate problem. Overvaluing of players that I don't think long-term actually fit. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that the Bruins would have made either of these moves. One of which they couldn't have done. They could not have gotten Lindholm. I can't stress that enough. You could talk about poor asset management up to this point. I don't know how you could. Last year they went all in, and there were a plethora of reasons the season ended the way it did. But that's where they spent. People have asked them to go all in for years. They did. Didn't work. They can't do it again. And for those of you who are saying, well, you are first in the league, you have to make that push. Every year, you don't know when you get that chance again. I understand your logic there. Take a look around at the bottom feeders and how long they were bottom feeders. This team isn't stuck in the mushy middle. They're not. I know for years we've second round, third round, finals, and we just can't get over the hump, and I get that. But we're not the Minnesota Wild. We're not a wild card every year who gets wiped out in the first or second round every year. No, this team plays good hockey every year. They're competitive and considered a potential contender for a cup almost every year. And you cannot go all in again and ensure that it ain't happening. You are going to start as more and more assets leave because you can't recoup them. The Bruins didn't mess anything up here. They're playing a different game than those two teams are. They're following different rules than those two teams have to. That's the God-honest truth because life ain't fair. Vancouver would trade the last 20 years of Bruins hockey for their hockey in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. So would Winnipeg, by the way, and the Thrashers. You play by different rules at different stages of your franchise. That's all it is. By the way, we are going to have more episodes coming out this weekend. I'm really excited about it. But I just want to touch on this because it didn't make any sense, the backlash that I've seen. And a lot of you, very, very smart people have just gone, oh yeah, no, not us. That's the correct response right now. Not us. Couldn't be us. It sucks. It's not as much fun, but this is what it is. Like, comment, subscribe. Nailed it. Go Bees. Go Bees! Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching, but it is time to give a shout out to our high quality inspectors. We've got our top line tier inspectors. We got Brock Nope, Han Slomo, Coach D, the Atomic Lizard, Bradley Johnson, Aaron Adams, Just Aaron, Darren Woodbury, Brett Arney, Pinsen, and Nick Citrullo. Thank you guys so much for your support. It is greatly appreciated. And of course, massive props to these absolute stallions, the all-star tier inspectors. We have Jason Ozzy Bruin Connolly, that's just one name, Bruin Smash, Abraxion, Heil E. Coyote, Jacob Pratt, Tupton D. Tashi, Jonathan Harvey, Da Kingery, The Only Newts, A Tasty Snack, Doots42, and Jeremy. You guys are absolute studs. I can't thank you enough, and go Bees.